What's happening, guys? Today's city update is taking us to the south of France, specifically to Nice, where we will find this restaurant, Les Plongeoir, which translates to the diving board. So let's dive on in. Right? Okay, all right. As I mentioned in last week's city update and about 11 months ago in this video right here, I really wanted to start working on a new area in the city, specifically this area. So out with the old and in with the new. You can see we're demoing out that old weird kind of retaining wall and step section, and now we are laying in all of the water plates in medium azure as well as in aqua, and then we're laying down our burps so that we can start the new cliff section. Now we've also got this little rock section right in the middle, but now for the ever tedious part of adding in slopes. I feel like all I've been doing the last few days is dark gray slope work. So we kept it consistent though. I didn't add any light bluish gray, and I also added a ton of olive green, again, just to keep it consistent with that initial section. But this time I definitely added a ton more foliage in this area. So next it was time to add the layer of clear plates over all of the initial water layer. I ended up using a bunch of those factory error Translite blue plates I showed off in this week's haul video. I gotta say they look really cool, and I was running really low on the clear. I way underbought, so I needed to end up filling those in. Then you can see off camera I went back and I added in a ton of cheese slopes just along the edges of the cliff work so that it would feel like waves. I didn't really want a bunch of waves out in the water part. I just wanted it up against the shore. But look at that. We got some serious progress already early in the video. So before we get to the first building section, we got to take a look at this area of the city, because as I was working on lighting up this area for an upcoming lighting video, I had to knock out some of this rock work just to access the little expansion port in there. And it kind of made me pause and think, man, what a cool opportunity to do something here. Obviously, I could just do a tunnel or add the rocks back in, but let me know what you guys think. Always curious to hear your guys' suggestions. But okay, back to the city update. Let's get on with the first building. Looking at the source material, we're going to take a few departures design-wise, but the overall shape and idea of the building is going to be the same. So let's start with the ground floor. All right, so you can see we've got this sort of angular shape to the build, and in a rare turn of events, I decided to do an interior for this building. So starting off with a very simple little table with that croissant and the donut, and then this little half-height wall that's going to separate the dining area from the kitchen. Now, on the exterior, we've got this nice little textured pillar with just some dark green foliage climbing up the wall, but the real highlight of this building is the sand red color. So there's our first angled section, just sits in place, connected to a little 1x3 jumper, and then we've got a little bit more sand red just to kind of help fill in the gaps. That angled wall is semi-loose, but I don't really mind it too much. And then a little doorway that's going to connect to the walkway, and then another textured pillar. This time I've used that D-snot brick to connect my little lantern to it. You can see the wire just kind of hanging out there for a minute. After that, we've continued that gray texturing and the dark green foliage with that simple little window detail. Now, this back wall is kind of boring, but I did do this cool technique using those modified plates, the fluted 2x2 bricks, and then I used the little rounded jumper and again that modified plate just to kind of fit it all together. And I don't really know what's going to face this wall in the city, so I didn't want to go crazy with a bunch of detail, but I did want to do a little something. Also got that little exhaust pipe and the little vents. I used a spider web piece or Spider-Man piece to simulate some steam or some smoke coming out of that. And it's on the back side of the kitchen. So just kind of a fun little detail. So painting to this side, you can see we've got another similar design with that textured pillar and the dark green foliage and that little lantern. And then here is the rest of our interior. So you can see I've got this really basic kind of oven cooktop as well as that basic sink. And then I went ahead and just added two little minifigures inside, again, just to add a little extra detail. But now finishing off the ground floor, we've got another sand red section. You can see I just set it back with some jumpers to create some offset. We've got a little sign there that eventually we'll print a custom sticker for, and then a double door. And then I added some black kind of wrought iron detailing above the door using the lattice fence piece as well as the umbrellas. I just felt like it needed something a little bit different, a little departure from the white detailing I was doing. So here is the finished ground floor. I am absolutely in love with this build, but I'm also really excited to show you guys the second floor, so let's head there now. All right, so looking at the second floor, you can see we've again got that same angled base, and I've done a bunch of the tiling. So let's just start off by adding some of these columns that I built with snot bricks and 1x8 tiles. Then I topped them off with those modified bricks and the little 1x1 round flower pieces just to add a little bit of extra detail. After that, we're gonna be adding these little assemblies I built. I don't really know what purpose they serve other than decorative, but you can see we've got the 1x2 plates with the rails, as well as the modified brick with that little divot, and then the pineapple piece with the white swirl in the middle. Again, they just look kind of cool. After that, we're going to be adding these fence pieces, which are attached to those modified plates with the clips, just so we've got some form of a railing up on this floor. And then the final railing up top is just this kind of rubbery zipline piece with the grips. And then I went ahead and just attached some skeleton arms. And I think it looks really nice and it fits perfectly. All right, so next it was time to add the minifigures, and I had way too much fun doing this. My absolute favorite part was the standing champagne bucket and the old people sitting there having coffee. I don't know why, just loved it. It was a ton of fun adding this, and I think it adds a lot of life to the scene. But one of my favorite parts of this second floor is this trellis system I built. And the key to it was using these sort of modified plates, I guess they are. They look like a plus sign. They go one stud in each direction. And that's how I was able to kind of lock everything in place. So another technique I used here that I was really excited to finally use was this new hanging basket technique I've come up with. So what I did, I took these 3 stem plant pieces, attached 2 together. I used bright light blue for the leaves, so that'd be a nice pop of color. Then what I did is I attached that into the little white dome, and then I took a bar with the clip on the end, stuck that into the green plant piece, and then I used these little trans clear minifigure elements. I think they came in like a Doctor Strange set. And then what I did is I clipped that in and then attached that to the underside of the trellis system so that we'll have really nice, seamless looking hanging baskets, and I'm really pumped about it. So now let's go ahead and install that trellis system on top of this, and I think it looks really good. I love the bright light blue. It just really contrasts nicely with the white, but the coolest thing about this is not the trellis system. It is the string lights that I installed from Light My Bricks. So what I did is I connected them to the strip light on the underside of this plate. Then I ran the string lights through the Technic plate in the base, and then I was able to weave those through all the different little slats. Now, one of my concerns was that it was going to be too bright. So what I did is I got this little dimmer switch from Light My Bricks so that I could kind of control the brightness of the lights. And we're going to light all this up here in just a minute, but I'm really, really pumped about these. So now it's time to build the circular dining area that's going to sit on top of the rocks. And you can see I've started out with some basic tiling just to kind of clean things up, but also be able to attach minifigures and tables and chairs too. So next we're going to talk a little bit more about some lighting. So starting out, I've got this modified brick with studs on all 4 sides, and I'm going to be running 2 bit lights on opposing sides all the way through it. Then what I'm going to be doing is running some 1x1 round bricks along, and that way this is going to create sort of like our internal column, but also hide the wires. Then what we're going to do is we're going to install 2 round bricks as well as 2 tiles with the little open stud in the middle. And so we've got a nice little base, and you can see I've then run the wires all the way through to the bottom of that Technic plate. So we essentially have completely hidden the wires. All right, so next up is the railing, and you can see I just used some 1x1 flower pieces, the nose cones, as well as those bars with the clips. So that way I could just install some flex tube and cut it right to the exact length I wanted. I just wanted something basic here. Next, what I did is I added in our side supports, because eventually we're going to add the sails in. I used some candlestick pieces attached to those modified plates with the bars on the end, and then we have some little tiles on those just to kind of smooth everything out. So then just a little final detailing, I added some white swirls onto some jumpers because it just felt like it needed something extra, and that was kind of what I chose. So then it was time to add some of the minifigures, and you can see I just put together this small little scene, nothing that crazy. But now for the exciting part, which is the sails. So as you might have seen from my haul video earlier this week, I got these new sails from this new Harry Potter set, and they're not a perfect triangle. And so what that means is these support pillars have to sit at kind of awkward angles. It doesn't fit perfectly. Overall though, I think it's really, really close, and I really like how it turned out. Now, in order for me to run the wires from this little rounded dining area back to the kind of the mainland and the expansion port, what I'm doing is I'm actually running the wires underneath that walkway, and then I'm securing them with these light bluish gray boat studs, so that way it'll be nice and hidden and secured, and then keep the wires in place. Now, before we add everything into the city, we've got to add some final little details, so I added these old guys playing cards, a bunch of potted plants, and my absolute favorite, which is the little red Vespa. So now finally, here's the before and the after and at night, and it is just beautiful.